Hello, welcome to Critter Care. I'm Katie Ayres with the Medicine Hat SPCA, and I'm here with Nicole Anhorn, who's also with the Medicine Hat SPCA as our shelter manager, and she will be talking with us today about kittens and everything you might need to know about caring for a kitten and preparing your home to bring home a kitten. So Nicole, I guess one of the first things I wanted to ask you was, we hear, and we certainly talk about at the shelter all the time, something called kitten season. So can you tell us what exactly is kitten season?
For us, and I think everybody, kitten season starts around springtime and can go until early fall, and it seems to be when all the kittens are born. And right now with us, we have at least 8 litters of kittens with us right now at the SPCA, and they've come in within the last month, kind of in a steady stream of kitties.
Of kitties being dropped off. And they come, sometimes they come from owners, sometimes they come from rural areas. You know, there's a couple of things with kittens that are a bit different when you're thinking about adopting a kitten versus an adult cat. And do you have any particular suggestions for people if they're thinking about adopting a kitten, how to choose one when there's so many different options? Of course, when we have this kitten season influx, how would you go about deciding, you know, which one you should bring home?
Well, we always suggest when they're coming in to visit kittens that they actually take some time to get to know the kitten, bring them out, see what their personality is. Most kittens are going to be very similar. They're going to have a lot of energy, and they're going to be playing and climbing around and scratching and maybe biting sometimes, just like a puppy would, but for a kitten version. So just come in and spend time and see if you can kind of get to know their personality a little bit better. Some people have specific color preferences. There's a lot. We have polydactyls, which are the 6-toed kitties. Some people are attracted to those guys. We have a lot of really cute kitties that all kind of look the same, so then it just becomes personality-wise and seeing if they're active. Some people don't like a very active cat, so it just depends.
And I know one of the things too with kittens that some people like is to actually adopt them in pairs, because I'm sure you've noticed as well, but a lot of kittens really bond with each other, like with their sibling groups. And sometimes when you have, say, a litter of 4 or 5, sometimes there's 2 that are really super bonded. So I know at the SPCA, like, we will tell people if there's 2 of a litter that are really bonded and we want them to stay together. But what would you say would be maybe some of the benefits of adopting 2 kittens together?
2 kittens, I think, would be great together because they can keep each other busy. When you get them home and you get an individual cat home, sometimes they get bored. That's when they can get destructive, especially if you're away at work all day. Having 2 kittens together, I myself have 3 cats, and they keep each other busy. They don't, you know, destroy or wreck anything. And so I think that's the benefit for that. They can keep each other company all day and even all night when you're sleeping, and because cats tend to be a little bit more nocturnal than anything else. So yeah, they're a little bit less destructive, and they're a little bit more destructive with each other, I guess, so to speak.
So they get really playful, and they grow up together, and cats, they often do bond really closely. The other thing I was wondering about is, what could people do to prepare their home a little bit to bring home a kitten?
A lot of kitten proofing, just like with puppies, but kittens and cats can get to places where dogs can't, so you have to be very aware of that. They can climb, they can end up on kitchen counters and really tall cupboards. So it's a matter of, you know, depending on furniture, there's ways to kind of kitten-proof furniture, even carpet, because some cats and kittens are used to scratching at carpet. There's lots of different products. There's tinfoil and materials that you can get for countertops where they jump up and they get a scare and they get down, so it's a way of training them. Lots of different things to do with that, kind of setting up their own room where they're comfortable with going. That, you know, you have a cat tree that you can start training them to use the cat tree. Their bowls, their litter, that sort of thing, get them used to that room, I think is one of the best ways to kind of get your house accustomed to a cat and a kitten, for sure. And
you mentioned that it can be very similar to puppy proofing, which is also in my mind kind of similar to like toddler proofing. So get down on your hands and knees, and and see, you know, are there cords? Because they would love to play with any cords that are behind the television. Just look around from a floor level, but as well, as you can see, they also like to climb. So consider what you have that would be climbable, even things like curtains and blinds. So to consider those things, and like you said, to have appropriate outlets for them, like a scratching post so that you can redirect them to appropriate places to play and to scratch.
And there's also plants and flowers that you have to consider as well when you have
That's a good point.
Cat or kitten, because there are lots that are deadly. Lilies, for example, are deadly for cats. So that type of thing, cats will chew and eat flowers and things like that. There's cat grass that you can buy specifically for them to chew, which a lot of them do love. So that's another thing to look at too. If you have greenery, then you have to do some research to see if you can still have that.
That's a good point. And there's actually a really great website, petpoisonhelpline.com, and you can look up all the different plants as well as different chemicals and things like that that might be naturally in your home, like bleach or just different cleaners, and it'll tell you and advise you on which ones are toxic to cats versus dogs, and how to deal with them in the home if you are having a kitten or a cat in the home. So that's something that I think is really important that a lot of homeowners don't think about. And I know we're at the time of year right now where people are planting a lot and starting to garden as well. So it's good to be aware of what kind of things maybe you shouldn't plant if you're planting your garden at home. So great. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We will be right back. Hi, we're here with Alicia Mathis with Pet Value, and today we're going to be talking about some of the behaviors that cats can show that as pet owners we don't really like so much. So the first one we want to talk about is inappropriate scratching behaviors. So sometimes our cats will scratch on places like the couch or, you know, our legs sometimes. I had a little kitten climb up my leg the other day. So how do we redirect them to scratch in more appropriate places, and what kind of products are there out there that we can redirect them to?
So the most common one that we have is any type of cat scratcher. Okay. So depending on the cat, we do have the carpeted ones like this one. Sisal is also very common. We also have the cardboard ones as well, just behind you. So those are some basic ones that cats do. Cats outside would normally do wood. So we do have a couple trees that are like that too. And to help get them attracted to it, we do have cat attractants, such as catnip, or we have catnip spray, or even honeysuckle bark is also very common. Okay, so they would you'd actually get pet owners to spray that, for example, on the sisal or on the cardboard, and that would encourage the cat to scratch using these objects. Yes. Awesome. And I know something that we hear people talk about at the shelter when they're adopting a cat sometimes is saying that they want to declaw a cat because they don't want them to be scratching on places that are inappropriate. So it's not something we're a fan of for sure, and we certainly understand from talking to our vets that it can be very harmful for them and hard on them medically speaking. So what are some alternatives that pet owners would have to declawing? So declawing, our most common product would be the soft claws. It's a gel cap that goes directly on the claws. We do recommend cutting the nail first and then applying, and all the instructions are in the booklet itself. And so the cat would still scratch, but it's not going to actually make any damage. Yes. And you just put a little dab of glue, I believe? Right into the nail, or into the cap, pardon me, and then you'd put that right on the nail. Most cat owners only do the front claws because those are the ones that they'll do unless they have multiple cats and they're fighting. Then we would suggest all 4 paws. And how long do they tend to stay on for? Generally 4 to 6 weeks is pretty average. That's pretty good. So depending on how aggressive they are, some of the younger guys who've never had it tend to chew them off a little bit, but generally 4 to 6 weeks is pretty good. So great. Wonderful. So those are some great alternatives. And I guess, you know, there's also the deterrents that people can use to spray on their furniture. So can you tell me a little bit about some of those? Sure. So this one here is actually an indoor and outdoor deterrent. So you can spray it on furniture, shoes, even outdoor patios, that kind of thing. Then we have the indoor specifically for cats. And again, so if that's on your furniture, shoes, clothing, anything like that. And then the bitter apple, even though it does say for dogs, it is still really good for cats too, especially on your cords or shoelaces, things that are fun and still enticing. So the things you don't want them to either play with or chew or scratch, and that'll do
deter them. And it just tastes obviously bitter. Apple, it tastes bitter, so it's something that they don't like.
It's gross.
Yeah,
It's
so it's more of a deterrent. Perfect. Well, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Something we feel strongly about here at the Medicine Hat SPCA is spaying and neutering pets. And we're trying very hard not to contribute towards the overpopulation issues that we have in the city and surrounding areas, especially with our cat population. So there's a number of different reasons I wanted to talk about why people should consider spaying and neutering their pets. The first, of course, is to help control the population. So especially with your cats, if they go inside and outside, or if they're barn cats or shop cats, please consider having them fixed so that they're not continuing to procreate and have litters of kittens. We have hundreds of cats and kittens surrendered to the shelter every year, not to mention all the other rescue groups in the surrounding area that also have cats and kittens surrendered. So there's many unwanted cats and kittens out there. So please consider spaying them and neutering them for those reasons alone. As well, it also does help to prevent some health issues such as cancers. Animals are prone to developing cancers in places like their uterus, their ovaries, their testicles, if they're not spayed or neutered. They can also develop an infection in their uterus called a pyometra, so that's another health risk, and that can kill an animal, and if they're not spayed or neutered, because they would be removing the uterus, which would have the infection in it. So they tend to, on average, have a longer lifespan if they are fixed as well. Spaying and neutering your pets can also help reduce some unwanted behaviors. So for example, with your cats, they won't wander as much if they're fixed because they're not smelling another cat who's in heat or needing to go and mark their territory and all of that. So they're less likely to stray too far from your home or from your immediate kind of property. The other thing I want to mention is, especially with male cats, their urine changes quite a bit after they are neutered. So the smell is pretty strong when they're an unneutered male cat, and once they are neutered, the smell is reduced quite a bit. So it's not quite so strong anymore. So it's more pleasant to live with a male neutered cat than a male unneutered cat. They're also less likely to spray or mark their territory in that respect as well. So if you are interested in spaying or neutering your pet, but you are having some financial difficulties, maybe you're low income, maybe you're on disability or receiving some type of government support right now, you can contact us at the shelter. It's 403-526-7722, because we do have a low-cost spay-neuter program. We've received grants from the City of Medicine Hat, the Canfell Foundation, and the 4 Feet Companion Foundation to spay and neuter both urban and rural pets, and we really want to prioritize cats this year. So please contact us, and you can come to the shelter as well and fill out an application for our low-cost spay-neuter assistance program if needed. I'm here with Barri-Ann Hayward with Municipal Bylaw Enforcement with the Medicine Hat Police Service. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the bylaws as they relate to cats in our community and what cat owners need to know. So Barri-Ann, can you tell us a little bit about the main kind of bylaws as they relate to cats?
I think the biggest for us is make sure that the cat is licensed. So if it does get out of your home, then we can return it home, because we'd rather do that than take it to a pound and stress it out. Also, they aren't allowed to be wandering at large, so they need to be on a harness and a leash in your yard, or just keep them in your yard. A lot of people can build catios and patios for them, and they can put them in there so that they get the outdoors, but they cannot be out on their own.
Okay. And is there a limit to the number of cats that people can have in Medicine Hat?
Yeah, they are allowed 6 cats.
Okay, so 6 is the maximum number. Now, talking a little bit about cats as they roam free, I know we get a lot of questions about that at the SPCA, or we'll have, in talking with A-Park, the amount of cats that get brought in as strays, there's quite a large number of them. It's hundreds every year. And I think it's really important for them to remember that Medicine Hat is basically a no free roaming cat kind of area, and they can get a fine for that, correct?
Correct.
Do you know what the fine is offhand?
That fine is $150.
Okay.
Yeah.
And licensing, how do people go about licensing their pets?
They can license their pets 3 different ways. They can go to City Hall.
Okay.
They can come to the police station just to the front counter, or they can go to the Animal Pound and Rescue Center, which is our pound here, and they can license there.
Can you tell us what is the fee if someone has an unlicensed cat that they have to go pick up from the pound?
So an unlicensed cat is a $500 ticket.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. So you can, animal that is spayed and neutered is a $15 fee for a license.
Wow.
And if they're not, it's $50. So
Okay.
the better option would be just to get the license.
And the licenses have to be renewed on a yearly basis?
Yes, if you have a microchip, you can get a lifetime license, which is a one-time $80 payment.
Okay.
And then you're good to go. You never have to do it again.
So one of the questions we often get on our phone lines at the SPCA is someone who's concerned about a cat in their neighborhood or by their business, and they're wondering how they can go about trapping the cat to bring it in, just to see if it has an owner out there somewhere. So, but there are a number of bylaws around cat trapping. So can you explain what they are so that we're making sure people are following the rules, basically?
Sure. So the main points to remember about trapping cats is that it doesn't drop, the temperatures, it doesn't go below 0.
Okay.
That the neighbors adjacent to you and beside you know that you're trapping.
Okay, in case it's their cat that they...
Exactly,
yeah.
then maybe they'll just keep it inside.
Right.
And also, as soon as you catch a cat, then you need to call us, Bylaw enforcement, or take the cat yourself down to the local pound, which would be the Animal Pound and Rescue Center.
Okay, and the 0 degrees has more to do with just their safety, and they need to be in shade as well, I believe?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And it's just to make sure that they don't overheat and that we're not causing any distress for the animal who's being trapped.
That is correct.
And where can they get a trap?
They can buy one.
Okay.
Or they can rent them. They can rent them at the Animal Pound and Rescue Center or Grand Rental Station.
Okay, perfect. So there's a number of different things that cat owners should be aware of, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
We are here at Pet Value with Alicia Mathis, who is the store manager, and we're going to be talking about nutrition and our cats. There are a number of different life stages that our cats will go through, from kittenhood to being a senior, and they have different needs at each life stage. And there's so many different types of foods out there that you could buy for your pet. Generally speaking, at the shelter, we stay away from any foods that could be purchased anywhere outside of a pet store. So we tend to go with the foods that are in a pet store, like some of these ones that are featured here today. Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the differences between kitten, adult, and senior food, and why it's important to actually choose your food based on their life stage?
Sure. So we do have a couple brands that are life stage specific. So for this one, we have a kitten food, and you're going to have a high DHA content for brain development and cognitive development. Kitten food will also be higher in calories for their healthy growth. Moving on to adults, you'll have a little bit of a moderate kind of calorie content there, just because they're still burning, because they are older. They won't need as high of a calorie.
But still somewhat active.
Still active, yeah. And then going into a senior blend, they'll have a lower calorie, and they'll also have glucosamine in there for their hips and joints, because they're not as active, and so they're not burning as much. So
Right.
yeah.
And I know weight gain can be a major issue for cats, especially if they're not as active or as they are maturing in age.
Yes.
Are there special foods for that as well?
There is, yes. There are some scientific balances that do have the indoor specific, senior specific, appetite control, especially after spay and neutering, because they're not burning that as well.
Right. How about, we have some wet food here. Can you tell us a bit about the wet food versus dry food? Should you feed both, just one or the other?
It kind of depends on the cat. You can absolutely feed it, especially for older cats who aren't necessarily eating as much. It is a good calorie filler, especially with adults who are actually burning too. It is kind of a nice, or for those cats who don't actually drink a lot of water, it's a nice substitute for that, because then they're getting that moisture in there too.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Cats can be notorious for not wanting to drink a lot of water. Some cats love their water and will even play with it, and others just will hardly touch it. And we recommend that you change cat's water every day if that is an issue, but also you can feed wet food in addition to the dry. And some people will even choose to feed only wet food. And I know some vets will say that that will also help with especially male cats that can be prone to urinary infections or urinary obstructions, that increasing their wet food diet can help with that. Now you also have a couple of different types here that are what you call more holistic brands. Can you tell us what the difference is there?
So the holistic brands compared to your science diet brands, they're going to use more wholesome ingredients. So we call it the rainbow of health. So you're going to have pumpkin, blueberries, green tea, all those sort of natural fillers in there to make them fuller longer. There is also the limited ingredient diet. So it's going to be a single starch and a single protein. They're not going to have any fillers other than their starch and maybe an oil. And those are great diets for those who have any intolerances to some kibbles.
So how would you know if your cat had an intolerance? What would be maybe some signs of that?
You could have diarrhea, the cat will avoid the food, throwing up, anything of those, Some skin patches, if they're losing fur, that can be an extreme one too.
Right, and always good to consult with your vet, of course, too, in those cases when that might be happening, and they might recommend that you try a more limited ingredient food. Perfect, great, well thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm here with Nicole Ann Horn with the Medicine Hat SPCA, and she is our shelter manager. And today we're going to be talking about mostly adult cats and why people should perhaps consider adopting an adult cat instead of a kitten, some of the benefits to that, and then just some of the things that you might need to know before bringing an adult cat home. So Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about, in your perspective, why would someone perhaps consider adopting an adult cat over a kitten?
Well, a lot of people don't want to go through the kitten phase, much like having a toddler or child at home. There's a lot of training that you have to do for scratching, sometimes at the litter box. Feeding, there's a lot of different life stages with the food that you have to go through. And adult cats have a personality already. They are already developed in their personality, so when you come in and visit, it's very easy to find a cat that probably speaks to you more so than a kitten. Kittens speak to everybody, much like puppies do. Adult cats have their own distinct personalities, and I think they're a lot more fun in that way. That they're already trained. They already know what to do. So and they're much less destructive for the most part. So and
you kind of know what you're getting too in terms of their personalities. So say you're wanting, like a lot of people I find have another cat at home if they're coming to us and looking for a cat, and maybe they're looking for a buddy for their cat. So they kind of have a sense of the type of personality that they're looking for, and you can find that more easily with an adult. So speaking of that, what are some things that people can do to help ease the transition when they're bringing a new cat into the home if they have another cat in the home already?
What we normally suggest is to start out with the new cat in its own separate room, have all of their food, their litter box, everything kind of in that separate room with the door closed preferably, so that everybody can get used to the smells underneath the door first. Most animals will get that first. They go with their senses first, so smell first. And then they'll get a little bit used to each other that way. Then within about a week, you can slowly start introducing them on a face-to-face level. There's probably going to be some hissing and some spitting, but for the majority and from my experience, I've never had a full-out cat fight happen, especially when you do it slowly and gradually. If it's something where you introduce face-to-face right off the bat, you're not going to get good results. And a lot of the time, that's when we get cats back because they just don't get along.
And they need time, too.
Yes.
They need time to adjust.
Everybody needs time. People need time. Everybody needs time to adjust to each other and figure out personalities. And the cat that you have there, or multiple cats, they need to know that they're still the boss. It's still their house. So that needs to be established as well with the newcomer. So,
Would you say it would be any different if you're bringing a new cat home and you have a dog in the home? How might you introduce them in a different way?
Very similar. Very similar with the dog, just so that they can get the smells underneath the door. And with a cat versus a dog, a lot of the time dogs are going to chase cats. So it's really important for the cat to have a high place to be. Cats feel safer higher up. So a tall cat tree that the cat can escape to and get away from the dog and kind of survey their realm from above. That's what they're most comfortable with. So, but same thing, introduce them slowly over a week or so, and then you should be fine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, like you said, you know, a lot of dogs, their instinct is naturally to chase. And some dogs and cats can be really good playmates, and other times they just kind of keep to themselves. But they cohabitate in a lot of different people's homes just quite successfully. But you have to be patient and take the time. And we'll have people come back with a cat after they've adopted it like a day later, and that's just not enough time for them to have the, you know, adjusting kind of period that they might need to get used to each other's presence. So don't rush it, and try and think about those things in advance before you're bringing your pet home. And our adoption process here, I know we usually, like if someone's applying for an animal, they have to fill out an application form. And there's a few things that we check. So we check with cats, we check if they are renting, that we'll check with the landlord and make sure that they're allowed, and we check if there's other animals in the home as well. So we will go over these things with people. But we do want people to make sure that they take more than at least probably 2 weeks to let them adjust, and that they have a decent setup in their home for an extra cat.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We will be right back.
Secondhand Cat, author anonymous. Give us a chance, we who are not brand new, who would love a home with someone like you. We may have been around a bit, but we know that we could be a perfect fit. So before a kitten you're tempted to pick, give us a look, but not too quick. Look at the character in our face, and our bodies still full of grace. Just think of us day after day, watching people look and walk away. But say the word yes, and we will know our goodbyes are said and we're ready to go. Adopt a shelter cat.
In June of this year, we are launching our Extreme Shelter Makeover campaign. So for anyone who's been to the SPCA, you will have noticed that we really need some renovations. We have been in this building since 1994, but the building itself is about 35 years old and was never meant to be an animal shelter. It was originally a warehouse, and we did have it outfitted in 1994 to try and build us a decent space. But at this point, due to 23 or so years of over 10,000 animals being in the facility, it is quite run down. We have many areas needing repair. We also have just some areas that need a bit of a redesign to work with our flow now that we're no longer pound services, but just to better facilitate kind of the needs that we have today. And we need, of course, new flooring, new paint, and all of this. You can see in this space, we have tile floor, which is not, and this is our isolation room. So for anyone that knows anything about disease management, this is some of the worst flooring you can have for disease management, because in isolation we usually have animals that need to be more protected from disease, and tile floor, the grout is very porous. So we really need new flooring, new paint, new kennel space. We have major issues with storage, and we also really want to be able to add on, in addition to the building, to be able to provide more humane education programming. We don't currently have a space where we can entertain any groups of people and provide seminars or training, our pet first aid classes, or even just meet with the kids that come in from school on different tours. So we want to add an addition onto the building as well, so that we can provide some more educational programming. So those are some of our needs, and this campaign will be on our website. You can visit www.medhatspca.ca to read all about it. And there's a number of different naming opportunities and ways that you can pledge a financial commitment to helping us renovate our shelter. Our goal amount is $700,000 in order to renovate our entire shelter and to add on the addition.